Hello and welcome back to level 51 of your Thoughts and Players podcast, the gaming podcast with bold takes and no strings attached. I am Jeremy, back once again with the two compadres. Of course, I have David.
What up?
And I have Corey.
It is great to be back, gentlemen.
It is great to be back.
Again.
Again.
Yes. Well, yeah.
Again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, chickens, ducks, and hens, just to give some kind of, context, we had originally scheduled our triumphant return for February 13th. We had some technical issues. The universe said, you know what? Not yet. Let it bake a little more. All right. But we're back. We are done. We are well done. And we are back. Okay. So let's get some housekeeping out the way. You may be wondering, hey, you guys been gone for a minute. Now you're back. What happened? Well, let's say
Quantum Realm.
Quantum Realm.
Yeah.
Ant-Man right around the corner, huh?
That's right.
That's somehow superhero people look at. Anyway, so there's two main things, right? The first one being is just life, right? I'm an old, my compadres are adjacent in age, so they have their own things going, and life just kind of got busy, right? The other thing is that we've been discussing making a return. We want to make sure that when we made the return, we had things in order of which to keep up the production, keep up the content level. Matter of fact, not just keep it, elevate it. We're all about elevation, all right? We're Mount Kilimanjaro over here. So that's what we've been working on, trying to make sure that we're able to keep it up. So a couple of new things is that we're reducing some of the shows we've been doing. Now, we have Thoughts and Players. We have Games WTF, which is still going to have a monthly cadence. And we have We the Meeple, which will still retain a monthly cadence. However, with Thoughts and Players, we are moving from bi-weekly to weekly. That's right. You get the three of us twice as much. That means all three of us are going to be constantly in your head every single week. All right?
I'm not alone.
Exactly. You're not alone. Exactly. And so what we're doing, though, we're changing it up. So 1 week will be more of a kind of conversational episode. And the other week is going to be competitive. We're gamers. Yeah. We have a competitive spirit. All right. We like meritocracy. And fortunately, we are launching this new level on one of those weeks. So you guys get to experience these new ideas we have. You let us know what you think. You let us know about the competition, but we're really excited about it. All right. But before we get into that competition, guys, was there anything you maybe want to say to the people? Anything you may want to further elaborate on that I've said?
Just sorry we've been gone so long.
Yeah, we're happy to be back. We're going to deliver. I think we're going to deliver our best stuff here. We pared down a lot of the segments, but we're making it very more personal. And we're really going to be able to talk about not just certain topics for a minute at a time, but we're allowing ourselves to get as deep in the topics as we want to go without a sort of, hey, we got to hit these points, so let's move on. No, like if we're very interested in something, we can really dive deep into it.
Exactly. That's a great point. We all have different perspectives, different games that we spend a lot of time in. We want to spend more time talking about those games. We want to spend more time having conversations with each other. And we want to spend more time talking with you guys. Okay? That's why we're doing all this. So speaking of time, it's been a minute. And because we're gamers and it's been a minute, I'm sure in the interim of that, we have played at least some games. We've played at least some games for 2022 going into 2023. I'm curious if you guys had like any major games that kind of like racked your brain or you remember from last year, possibly your own little game of the year nominees or winners, so to speak. I mean, I can go. I didn't. So I was telling you guys before that I got tripped up in playing a lot of mobile games.
Yes.
So I was playing a lot of Ball Sort. All right. I was playing a lot of Wordscape. All right. These aren't proud things I've done, but they're things that I've done. As far as regular video games, I would say that the major takeaway games I played last year were Sifu. I talked about that. Great game. It's difficult, but I loved it. I love the combat mechanics in it. It's fantastic. PS5, boom, boom, you go there, right? Another game that I got into that I actually bought from my Steam Deck was The Surge 2. It's basically a Souls-like game. I was playing the crap out of that on vacation. Really enjoy the combat mechanic of that as well. Being able to sever off limbs and get upgrades. That's pretty dope. Another game that I forgot and then remembered that I played based on previous conversations of our Lost episode is Forza Horizon 4. That's actually the game I probably put the most time into of all those games. And I can't believe I forgot it. But yeah, I probably put 40, 50 hours into it. I beat all of the main story, if you want to call it that. Did a bunch of other missions. Was going around drivatars. Corey, your guy blows in that game. Man. I don't know what to tell you. I was killing them left and right in these races. Doing that, knocking that out. And then, that's pretty much the only games I can really think of from 2022. Oh, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Really enjoyed the campaign of that. Really enjoyed it. And then the game I was probably the most hyped for besides Sifu, Trek to Yomi. Completely sucked. It blew. It was a terrible game. And all it did was just make me want to go back to Ghost of Tsushima and play another 20, 30 hours of that, which I haven't done yet, but that's what it made me want to do. It's a terrible game. It's a terrible game, thanks Devolver Digital. I had belief in you, and you let me down. Guys, your tale of 2022, your games, what have you been up to?
Yeah, so obviously went on a break from the podcast for a little while, and I went on a break from gaming for just a little while. I felt like the summer months were a little bit barren. I had completed Elden Ring, and that's still my game of the year for 2022. It was just a masterpiece of a game. But yeah, I went on a little bit of break. Got back real late when God of War came out, and I dove into that. And I love that game. It's not quite as innovative as the original God of War I felt was in terms of like how fresh it felt. It definitely felt like a sequel. Probably better in every way, but I'll have fonder memories of the 2018 God of War. Yeah. But really enjoyed my time with that. Marvel and Midnight Suns, the tactical deck building game by Firaxis, who makes
XCOM.
Yes, makes XCOM. Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful game. Put 80 hours into that, beat it to completion. Yeah. I also got a Steam Deck, which is kind of morphing me into wanting to become a little bit of a PC gamer.
I could tell.
Yeah, I do like that, and I put the most hours on Vampire Survivor, which is a auto battler where you're collecting items, and it battles for you as you're moving around trying to avoid enemies. But man, that's a fantastic game that both me and my wife absolutely loved. So, and right now I'm playing a little bit of Fire Emblem, and Harry Potter just dropped. So I'm in the very, very beginnings of that game.
Oh, yeah. That's true. Yeah. And yeah, I know you've been becoming, getting somewhat pulled over to the side of the CPU master race. You would ask David about his rig, and then you realize that his rig is from outer space and you can never get it.
It gave me sticker shock.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You'll never be able to touch it. I'm speccing out how to build a new computer, and the whole time I'm doing it, I'm also speccing out how to build an old computer. That's a completely different discussion. And the whole time I'm like, I'll never touch what David has. I was telling my cousin about some of your components, like your CPU and your GPU, and he replied with sounds such as "oh" and "woo." Those were his responses.
Why don't you give us an update on it, David? Like, brag a little about it, because it's such a beast of a machine. You don't want to. You don't have to brag, but
I figured I was updating my computer, so I might as well just get the best of the best right now.
Yes.
And not have to update it for another 10 years. So I couldn't get my hands on a 4090, so I have a 4080. It doesn't.
It does its job.
I have the i9 13900K.
Yeah, it's a. I looked it up. Isn't it like a 24, like a 20 or 24 core CPU?
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I got like a 1600 watt power bank thing, just because the graphics card and everything, it just takes a lot of power.
Yeah.
They said you want at least a 13. I was like, well, I'll go 16 just to be safe. I have just a 2 terabyte Samsung 980.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
SSD, okay. But then I have a 12 gig hard drive.
That 980? That's the NVMe.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
So you have a games on and stuff.
So you have a 2 terabyte NVMe PCIe 4, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Elemental P.
If you guys don't get that, I'm sure if you're CPU player or gamers, you get that. Corey, I don't know if that escapes you. That's a ridiculously fast hard drive with a ton of space on it. Just your boot drive is 2 terabytes.
Yes. And then I got 4 sticks of memory. They're 16 gigs each. It's DDR5.
Jeez. 64 gigabytes of DDR5. What speed are they running? 5600?
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
You know the most. Well, David, I'm gonna let you talk more, but I'm getting triggered. You want to know the most? You want to know the most infuriating thing is he's saying this stuff like he only kind of knows.
I forget. I was looking into it when I purchased everything, but after that it was just gone.
Yeah.
The motherboard is a 790, a Z790.
Z790. Those are great boards.
So yeah, I was just like, here's my credit card. I need the best stuff.
This is reminding me of like the rich kid who bought like a really nice car and he's taking it to the car show. And Jeremy was the one that he got the old car from his dad's garage and he built it back up. And now you guys are like what's in your hood? I just bought it. And Jeremy's like, I built mine from the knuckles and
I mean, it's. I guess to an extent, it's kind of like, I'm like, what kind of car you got? Oh, I've got a freaking Bugatti. I'm like, and oh man, did you get like the manual transmission or the automatic? I forget. It's like what? But I guess David, what games have you? What games you've been playing?
Yeah, let's go back on topic. You guys know me. The audience knows me. I'm always on Apex. And I played Overwatch 2 a little bit. It doesn't hold me like Overwatch 1 did. I've only probably put maybe 100 hours into it.
That's it, huh?
But as the 2022 game of the year, I don't really remember before we stopped recording, but afterwards I played this game, She Will Punish Them, or something like that. And it's just like a succubus, and it's pretty much Diablo. Yeah, she will punish them if they wear it.
Yeah.
And they wear as much clothes as you want them to wear. So 18 plus game pass. It was like $10 or something. I don't know. But that was fun. I fell through the map, got mad, lost an hour of playtime. Haven't played it since. But I plan to go back eventually. Because the gameplay, it was fun. You can dodge. You have like ice and fire. And, you level up certain things. It is a pretty in-depth game.
Was that game released last year?
I don't know if it was released last year, but I bought it last year.
Okay.
It came out in 2020.
Okay.
It sounds
still new.
Now, I will, as much as you infuriated me 3 minutes ago, I will find a kindred spirit with you, because if I got a computer like that, of course, one of the things I would play on it would be a 2-year-old indie game.
All right.
$10 indie game. That's 100% me. I'm getting that, and I would pay like, oh yeah, let me go ahead and play Fight in tight spaces or something like that.
Software Inc.'s gonna run so great on
this. It's gonna run so great. They did new stuff. The people look like people. Go ahead.
There's probably to be quite a few people listening that are a little enraged because I have this massive computer and just play A5.
Right.
But that's your thing. That's your thing.
I did hit the new Dead Space. I plan on playing it at some point. I just haven't had the urge. Because I never played the original.
I'm guessing it's going to look beautiful with your rig.
It's going to look beautiful.
It's going to look outstanding.
But what I really want is Hellblade 2 to come out.
Yeah.
I'll be really invested in that.
Well, hopefully it survives.
I want Xbox to release a first-party game.
This season?
Like in general. Like, I don't think last year they released... Did they release anything, Jeremy?
Did they release
first party?
Yeah.
And Halo Infinite first party?
Last year, December. That was 2 Decembers ago.
Yeah.
Dang.
Was there anything?
They've had to have released something last year.
I mean,
right?
What though? Crossfire X, I think. That's it.
Nothing worthy, I guess.
That game's terrible.
It was. It had to be one of the worst years of all time for a game developer, for a studio. For a big three.
Right. Yeah.
But they did release Hi-Fi Rush already this year, which got some great reviews. So hopefully a good year for them.
For Xbox?
Yes.
Maybe. We'll see. So it was great hearing all that stuff. Us giving David a hard time about his rig that we're all envious of. Now that we're through that, we're going to get to the main event of this level. Which we have deemed Gamerbate.
The LeBron James.
Yeah.
You see it.
Let us clarify: Gamerbate, not Gamergate. That's something else that we ain't touching. We're touching here. Touching Gamerbate. Now, what is that?
What?
It's easy. 5 topics, right? Two of the guys in this level, it's going to be Corey and David. 5 topics. The guys duke it out. I award points based on who I think gave the best response or the best answer. If I don't like it, I can take points away. If I don't like that person that day, I'll just take points away. Right?
This was not in the rule book we read.
That's exactly. There
is no rule book.
Did a couple of addendums. Those addendums being there's no pages, there's no rule book. We're just living life. All right. And for the first topic, you guys ready?
Oh, we're jumping right into it.
We're jumping right into it.
Okay.
And part of it is based upon this thing we were just talking about, which is Xbox, right? Xbox is a dumpster fire, at least in my opinion, right? Mostly because of how they're handling the Halo IP in 343 and laying off 100 people there and that different stuff. So speaking of Xbox and 343, right? They came out, the last game they came out with, Halo Infinite. Multiplayer, people aren't happy with it. But when it came out, it was great. The campaign, great. I gave it my game of the year when it came out, right? What I'm interested in is the first topic here. We're talking about prospective new companies making Halo games. I'm interested in who is correct and what is the best Halo game ever made. So I want you guys to think about this for a quick second, okay? Because remember, you guys can speak your truth, but it's also me judging here. And I can be swayed by good points. I can be swayed. So, guys, I'll ask, once again, for the people to set it up. The best Halo game. What is it?
So from the get-go, I know where Tori's going to go. And
do you?
Halo 1 and 2 walked, so Halo 3 could run. I believe it's Halo 3. I've never been a fan of Halo too much, but even Halo 3 I played the most of because that's what all my friends played. Even when I went to like parties and stuff, we were playing local 4-player screen, and so many people were on that last day the servers were on. They were just reminiscent, and they were open. How long were they servers up? Like 10, 15 years?
Yeah, they're up for a while. Yeah.
Not many games can do that, or have done that rather. Now,
that's true.
Halo 4, Reach, 5, even Infinite, they didn't hold at all.
In comparison to 3, you're saying? That's
yeah.
Very good point. You know what? 2 points to David.
So, David,
what have you got?
I'm not quite understanding. What game did you think I'm going to say?
I think you're going to say Halo 1 or 2.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I'm actually going to say Halo 1. It's Halo Combat Evolved, the one that started it all. It changed first-person shooters on console. Before then, our top-of-the-line shooter was GoldenEye. That was the one that people looked at. And
I mean, how bad
how bad is it now? And even games like Metroid Prime didn't have that dual-stick controls. The dual-stick control changed first-person shooters on console. And Jeremy, you're a very big campaign game. I would argue that Halo Combat Evolved has maybe the best campaign out of all the Halos. Now, obviously, it's a little bit old now, but at the time, it was extraordinary. It had great characters. It had surprises with the Flood. There was nothing like it. It had great vehicle.
You get a point for the Flood. You mentioned the Flood. Yes. I'll give you a point for
vehicle combat, which is really hard to get right in first-person shooters. They did great with you playing as the Ghost and the Warthog. It did split screen so well in the co-op. They had legendary mode, which was awesome. Not to mention the multiplayer, which it had just top-of-the-line maps. Some of the best maps in the series that keep getting remade to these older games to this day. It didn't start, but it was a big proponent of LAN parties. And obviously that led into Halo 2, which could also be considered the best Halo game. But I was going to say,
do you think that maybe is leaning to a bit of nostalgia? Because I would say that most people, when they think of Halo multiplayer, they immediately probably go to 2 and then maybe 3 before they go to 1.
So I'm playing a little bit off the host here. Do with that what you may. But Halo 1, definitely story and just bringing it first. Halo 2 for the online. It was revolutionary. So when you add those two, it's a 1-2 punch on the original Xbox. There's nothing better than those first 2 Halo games. Halo 2 was on Xbox, right?
It was.
Yeah. Okay, good. I don't want to lose points for that. Yes. So those two, that 1-2 punch of those 2 games, the one with the story mode and the one with the online mode, just combined, they're the greatest first-person shooter experiences, in my opinion, on any console ever.
Okay. Well, I'm hearing you. I'm with you. I do have a soft space for Combat Evolved.
Combination of 2 games.
Yeah,
I did put a combination of 2 games.
Yeah, so like. It's one or the other, if that's what we're trying to decipher here, and that's why I'm trying to figure out how Halo 3 did anything better in either regard than Halo 1 or 2, because to me the story wasn't as memorable as Halo 1, and the combat or the multiplayer, if I remember, felt a little bit bogged down compared to
If I recall, Halo 3 was the first Halo where you got to actually play as the Covenant, though, correct?
I mean, yeah, maybe. But to me, that doesn't mean much. Doesn't do much for me. Doesn't do much for me. Didn't they add something where you could like get like boosters or like a shield? Like the LB also did something?
Yeah, I believe so.
And I think they took like the pure multiplayer of Halo 2 and they tried to add something, which they've been trying to kind of change that mechanic, and they've changed it up every game since to where it's something a little different because they haven't nailed it. And Halo 3 didn't nail it either.
I mean, maybe Halo 3 is probably the best incarnation of it, though, right?
They had a lot of stuff.
Maybe, yeah.
You play, they had ranked.
Halo 2 had ranked. Halo 2 had SWAT.
Okay.
Right.
Halo 2 had big team battle.
Domination, ground war.
Okay, but I'm not going to take away points, but Corey, you're losing here because now you're referencing Halo 2 when your original argument was for Halo 1.
Well, my point standing is Halo 3
maybe is, I don't even know if it's the best of both worlds, but it doesn't beat Halo 2 in multiplayer. So if it doesn't even beat Halo 2 in multiplayer, how can it be considered the best Halo game? Because Halo is a coin of a franchise, and it's one of the best to do it like that. You have, on one side, you have the single player, and on the other side, you have the multiplayer. And both sides are usually such quality that that's what makes Halo such a good franchise. And my saying is Halo 3 is not better multiplayer than Halo 2, and Halo 3 is not better single player than Halo 1. So it's really about what do you believe in more? And I know, Jeremy, you believe in single player more, even if just a little bit. So to me, that makes Halo 1 the greatest Halo of all time.
Halo 3's campaign might not be as memorable as 1 or 2, but it had a decent length. The difficulties were very well placed where they were. And did Halo 1 or 2 have the party souls? You know,
the what?
They could have, like, I don't remember what they were called, but you could turn on, like, the skulls or whatever. And it had, right. You know, when you killed a bad guy, it would do, like, a firework of, like, glitter or whatever.
That's
or they would
true,
have big heads. Or they would be invisible or whatever. So it had a lot more
customization of multiplayer, right?
Let me ask the host a question here. Who's the best character in all of Halo franchise?
Who's the best character?
Most memorable character, yeah. Who do you think of when you think of Halo franchise?
I'm pretty sure most people would think of Master Chief.
Okay. So in Halo 3, you played as Master Chief, correct?
Correct, right.
The whole way.
From what I recall.
Or is that the game where the Avatar?
The what?
Avatar?
The game of the Avatar? His name?
You played as an elite.
Yeah.
That's the game where you played as the elite.
Right.
For almost half the game.
You play as part of the Covenant. Yeah.
The worst part of the game. Half the game is not fun to play as, in my opinion.
Well, okay, now you're getting a little bit of slippery zone there, right? Because up until that point, we had never experienced the universe in this fight from the perspective of the Covenant. So we're given a brand new context to the entire struggle. That's kind of like a lot of people that were clamoring for a Star Wars game that allowed you to play as the Empire and not just the Rebels, because they wanted to have the context of working within that. And some of the most interesting narratives are done by the opposing or the so-called bad guys.
But was it interesting narrative? Like, yes, they showed you the side, but was it interesting? Because I don't remember it being interesting. I don't remember it being fun. So although they showed that side, I found it neither interesting nor fun. And I think if you go back to that time, a lot of reviewers would also say that it wasn't interesting or fun. And when you go back to Halo 1, I believe there was 9 levels, and I believe all 9 levels hit a peak of just, this is a blast. This is so much fun that I want to play this level. I want to repeat this level. I want to play through this campaign on normal, on hard, on legendary, and I want to complete it with my buddy. I want to complete it solo. Some of those levels are so memorable. Like I said, the one with the flood, the second level with the big island. I can't remember the levels offhand. You gave us this topic 10 minutes ago. So
yeah, I can't name levels and stuff, but
you know, the final, it set so much precedent for so much of what Halo would do in the future. The Warthog outrunning an explosion at the end. That's Halo 1.
Yeah.
And every Halo's tried to copy that moment.
Okay, I got you. Okay, I hear you. So you know what? Let's hear it. Last arguments, 30 seconds. Round it up. David, you go first.
Halo 3, it had a good campaign. It had a great multiplayer. Might not have been as great a campaign as 1 or 2, but the multiplayer just reigned supreme. Everyone was devastated when the servers were closing. People still play it on the updated consoles and stuff, you know, the Master Chief Collection and things like that. And like I said, right in the beginning, 1 and 2 walked so 3 can run.
Corey.
That's my debate.
That's fine. Mine's going to be a lot shorter than that. If you want great multiplayer, you can go to Halo 2. If you want the best single player, you go to Halo 1. And Jeremy's a single player guy. I tended to be a single player guy back then. There's not a better moment in my childhood than playing Halo 1 on Legendary.
Okay. Valiant debate, guys. I have to think, and I think what I'm saying now is going to lend to who I think might have won that argument. The moment of which you are flying in the Pelican in the first level, and it simulates the landing of D-Day in an alien universe, is one of the gaming moments crystallized in my memory.
Me and David are trying to figure out what game this is, Halo 1 or Halo 3.
Okay, well, if you actually did remember,
Halo 1.
It is Halo 1, actually.
Oh, that's the second level then.
It might have been the second level.
Where they jump in the escape pods and they're coming down and they're crash landing and...
No. The Pelican is dropping them off. And you have aliens in there in the shields and all that stuff there. It might have been a second level or the first level. It definitely was Halo 1.
Okay.
So I guess, unfortunately, Corey takes that one. Because he had it pretty good going until that last 20 seconds.
I apologize.
Something in Halo 1 isn't in Halo 1. But you get that one. You get that one. It was very close though.
All right.
Was not as runaway.
It was very close because you used 2 games to beat my 1. But
you got to do what you got to do.
Well, you know what? That's fair. That's fair. Topic number 2, guys. Battle Royales, Apex, Fortnite, right? They've been the talk of gaming. But that juice has gone down a little bit, right? If you think of it, at one point, Minecraft was the epitome of gaming. And it's still huge, but it's no longer in the zeitgeist as it once was. Mm-hmm. So I have a question for you guys. You think about those 2 games going down. You think about the very quick death of PUBG and all these other games, DayZ, all these other ones. Battle Royale games, are they dead? Are Battle Royales good? Are they bye-bye now?
Let me take this from David before he steals all the spotlight here. Let me give you a couple real world analogies here, Jeremy. Okay. We take the sport of boxing. When Floyd Mayweather just a couple years ago was boxing, he would get these huge amounts of people watching him, right? Mm-hmm. So you'd be like, man, boxing is great. No, boxing was dead, but it had 1 star. Same thing with like, man, our big stores, our big box stores closing down. Are they dead? Walmart's still around, but that's the only one. You know, they're dying down. Big box stores are also dead, but you have those shining stars that are still going to stay around because they're almost too big to fail. That's what happened to Battle Royals. Battle Royals are dead, but there's a couple at the top that will always live on because they got so big they can't really fail. So you have your Apex, you have your Warzone, and you have your Fortnite. There is no more room for anyone to shine at any point. It's unlike every other genre. There is a couple clear-cut leaders in the racing genre. You have Forza, you have Gran Turismo, but there are so many other racing games that are really fun that you can sink hours and hours and hours into. It's not like that with Battle Royals. You have 3, and that's it. If you don't like those 3, there's not another one coming along for you.
Okay.
So before Apex, there was Fortnite and PUBG, right? Mm-hmm. Now, nobody knew about Apex or anything, and they were just like, hey, here's this free game, right? And it exploded. Mm-hmm. It is still, as Corey said, one of the top played VR games to this day. And it's still going. Their 4-year anniversary is happening right now. And Fortnite just revamped all their stuff. PUBG is pretty much dead, but it's surviving somehow, stringing along. Now we have Warzone. Mm-hmm. I don't know how people play that one too much. It's definitely not my cup of tea, but that is just going and going. And it's combining the older ones too, because Warzone 2.0, just takes off from Warzone.
Could you answer the question, David?
I am. Hold on. And so we do have other battle royale games like Spellbreak. That lasted for about a year.
Yeah.
They closed it down. Corey does have a good point with the top 3 or 4 that we have is just suffocating the competitors that are trying to get up there.
Okay.
Now, Spellbreak, I put about 20, 30 hours into that game, and it was really fun. It definitely had its perks. You know, it was based on magic instead of guns and stuff like that. But I just feel like it was missing a key detail that helped push it up. And I think that's just what a competitor needs to do, like Apex did. They go, boom, here's this game. You know, they combined PUBG and Overwatch, essentially, is what people were saying when it first came out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the top 3 are they're put them together, it's top of the streaming on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, doesn't matter. Top games, combined all 3. They may not be the top, but combined them, they're definitely top 5.
Yeah.
What they have to do is they have to bring to the table what these AAA companies, you know, EA, Activision, they need to bring what they're bringing. And the problem is smaller companies can't exactly do that because they don't have the money for it.
Mm-hmm.
So are they dead? No. Is the competition very small? Yes.
They're dead.
Ah, that's interesting.
David's talking about Apex like Respawn isn't a huge company owned by EA. Like no one else
he did
can
say
really
that.
do that.
No,
well,
he
actually
did say that.
Yes, they are owned by EA, but they were like, boom, here's this game, and it took off very well. It could have crashed and burned.
But they made one of the greatest first-person shooters of all time in Titanfall 2. Like, they already had the pedigree. No one else can come and make a game like that. You like that, Jeremy? You like Titanfall 2, don't you?
For one, I'm taking a point away because it's either pandering or it's a sly remark. So you're either saying it to say
it was pandering.
Well, then you lose a point. No pandering.
Oh goodness.
Okay, so if you want to use that example, Respawn made Titanfall one of the greatest games in my opinion, and then they brought out Apex, which sure, they're both first-person shooters, but the gameplay and the structure of the maps and the structure of the characters are completely different. They could have crashed and burned just as easily as it rised up as it did. I personally don't know examples of other companies trying to go out of their comfort zone. Like the people who made Assassin's Creed, did they try to make a game out of that type of game and it just crashed and burned?
I mean, Ubisoft did try to make a battle royale.
Yeah, but it wasn't Assassin's Creed. It wasn't
Assassin's Creed.
Are you talking about Agents of Mayhem or something different?
No, there was a different.
Okay. Yes, it was. Yeah, it was different.
Yeah,
it had Tom Clancy characters.
So yeah, that is a great example. Ubisoft tried and it just crashed and burned.
Yeah,
and you do say like, hey, those three are healthy. But like I said, I think as a whole, the genre can be considered dying when you only have the biggest of bigs supporting that genre. There's nowhere else for anyone to rise up and not even compete, just have a life, a pulse. Because that genre is so hard to have a pulse because guess what? You need ideally 100 players playing at the same time just to get one match. So you need thousands and thousands and thousands of people playing at the same time to be able to have a community where you can get matches. And it's hard to do that. And like I said, why, David, you even admitted you played Spellbreak for a while. Why did you leave it?
Because, like I said, it was missing something. I don't know what it was, but it just didn't hold me as well as Apex did.
And that's what's going to happen to every other one that tries to come out. Nothing will hold you because these guys are so big. They have the ability to maneuver as quick as they need to. Fortnite is able to make updates weekly and change things and maneuver and be like, okay, hey, our community doesn't like this. They're so big they can't fail, and they're so big that other companies can't get into that pie, so to speak.
So
there was another one that came up. I think it was called Superhumans or something like that.
Okay.
I can't remember it. That one had a pretty good go. I haven't heard much of it lately.
So
can't remember the name.
It's more so, I guess, the more so what you're saying is that the big three essentially suck up so much air that it's not allowing these other games a footing for it. But you're saying that's the opposite of it being dead, I guess.
It's just hard to compete in Battle Royale.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So we're saying the same thing, but you're saying the big three are keeping it that's alive. And I'm saying to me that's dying. When you only have 3 games.
So many copyrighted characters over. And people are just going with them. Like, hey, put our character in the game. They have Marvel now and Star Wars.
So here's the deal. Fortnite is 100% a battle royale. We can agree with that. But I don't think anyone says, hey, I want to play that battle royale game Fortnite. Like that Fortnite is bigger than its genre. It's exceeded it. So is Apex. You need games that fit in that genre, or else a genre is not alive. You don't say, hey, I want that, show me a Gran Turismo game. No one says that when they go to look for racing games, but people will say, I want a game like Fortnite. It's because it's surpassed its own genre. So there is no genre. There is Fortnite, there is Apex, and there is Warzone. That's it. There's no battle royale genre. Those are the 3 games, and no one else can even hope to survive.
Okay, so we're going bigger than what our names are. Google. Everyone says, hey, Google something. So there's search engines are dead.
Yes. How many other search engines do you use? There's just Google.
There's actually quite a bit of search engines, and there's been more search engines developing as an alternative to Google. It's actually a fair point, David. It's actually a very fair point.
It's Google. Google is bigger than search engines. It's Google.
Yeah, but I understand what you're saying. The argument you're saying is that Fortnite you're saying the argument that there is no battle royale because Fortnite has just become synonymous with that. Like that's what it is. But much like you're saying, well, there is no search engine opposite of Google. Google's just become synonymous with that. But there actually are.
Right, but it's almost like hipster to use those. It's different. For why? For the sake of being different?
The popularity of its utilization, I guess, is different than the health or the demand of a product that's being developed in the same lane. So much as you can say it's kind of hipsterish or alternative for someone to use something like a DuckDuckGo or something along those lines, right? There is obviously still a demand for it because those types of searches, either like search engines or different things like that, they're still being developed. So it goes along kind of with what David's saying is that these 3 are sucking up air, but there's still demand for it. It's just that when you think about saying something is dead, my idea is that there is no fertile land of which to sow something, to plant something. And what he said, it sounds like he's saying is that there is, but it gets snuffed out as compared to there being no fertile land for it to be planted.
Let me ask you, when you plant something, what do you hope happens?
You hope that it grows.
You hope that it grows. And battle royals, besides the big 3, have no room to grow. None of them grow. They have no ability to grow underneath the tall trees of those big 3. So that's why I'm saying it's dying. Because yes, you have the big 3, but nobody else can grow. And that is not good for a genre when it's dominated by 3. So it's a look at, it's a really a what do you feel, Jeremy? And that's kind of who wins this one, it's
okay, so just regular first-person shooter games.
There's hundreds on the market.
There's 100
people like.
But what ones do you hear about the most?
Call of Duty.
You hear about Call of Duty, Rainbow Six, and what else?
Halo.
Oh, and Halo. Okay. That's about it.
And you hear about For your single player ones, you hear about the Dooms of the world.
How many people talk about Doom?
I mean, a lot of people talk about Doom. That's besides the point, though. I don't think anyone would argue the first-person genre is dying. No one would argue that. It's oversaturated.
I mean, I stand by my point. It's not dead. It's just being suffocated by the big boys.
It's not dead. It's just being suffocated right now.
That's okay.
Yeah, because like the Apex community, there's a lot of people complaining about stuff. Fortnite community, I don't hear of, so I don't know if they're complaining or enjoying.
There's no
Call
other
of Duty. I know a lot of people are complaining about stuff. So if someone
then leave
just
and
brings
play
something
a
out,
better, it'll
if
die.
someone just caters to what the problem is with these other three, brings out their own A game, I'm sure that it will
die.
bring in the crowd.
It'll die.
It will not die. But it needs to be great. That's the problem. Is it can't walk, so the next one can run like the Halo one. It needs to be running as soon as it touches the ground.
Who can do that? Ubisoft has tried. It failed. Other companies won't even try. Halo refuses to do a battle royal because you can't keep it up.
But that argument actually builds, I think, more in David's favor, because you gave two examples that are built upon a competence, which is Ubisoft's general incompetence, and the idea that maybe if Halo's multiplayer is floundering, maybe if they added a battle royale component, it actually wouldn't be doing as bad as it's doing right now. But I'm also thinking about something else that David said in regards to other games. Maybe these other games aren't specifically quote unquote battle royale. I'm not sure. But when I hear people talk about battle royales, I also hear those same people talk a lot about games like Tarkov and Valorant, and those all have very healthy fan bases.
Those are not battle royales.
Exclusively? No, I wouldn't say so. But they do seem connected as a community, though, don't they, in some way?
They take aspects for sure. I'm not so sure on Valorant. Valorant seems much more like an Overwatch to me, but I haven't
like
played
a hero
it,
shooter.
So.
Yeah.
Yes, seems much more like a hero shooter to me. Tarkov is a little closer, but that's more like an Arma, which I know Arma turned into PUBG, but they had to do stuff to Arma to turn it into a PUBG.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely more of like hey, this is a world we're living in and we're growing in, almost like a Rust.
Right.
But that's where that genre came from, the battle royale genre. Games like that, those big open worlds where you can do things like that. But like I said, I just don't feel like there's any room for other companies to grow, even the big ones.
Valiantly argued point, gentlemen. Are battle royale games dead? When I think about it, I just don't hear about as many strictly battle royale games that are like being sustained by lower populations, I guess. And for example, maybe it doesn't need to have 3 million players, but if it has a faithful 200,000 players or a faithful 150,000, a community large enough to sustain it, if there were a lot more of those around, I would say that maybe the genre isn't trending towards dead. But I think as it currently stands, it's trending towards dead.
Okay.
I give that one to Corey.
Wow.
Topic number 3.
If he wins this one, do we not do the other two?
No, we're doing points. Like I might have won the topic, but you might have brought up enough good points where Jeremy rewarded you.
Yeah, I think you evened up with them in points on that one.
Okay.
Don't know how, but
cool.
I don't know why you're so.
You gave some terrible examples.
I don't know why you're so stingy with points.
Arguing that Ubisoft is an example why battle royales doesn't work. That's a deduction. That's a ridiculous.
I don't know why you're so stingy with points. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Let the points fly. They're free, buddy.
Yeah. Topic number 3. We're talking about gaming franchises. Here's one: Resident Evil. Resident Evil is historied. It has a very long number of games. But is it a top 10 gaming franchise? Think of all the game franchises we've mentioned so far in this level. Is it a top 10 gaming franchise?
David? I don't believe so. No.
You don't think so?
I don't believe so. It has a very in-depth cult following.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I follow a few Facebook groups and stuff for Resident Evil, and mostly older people have been playing them since PlayStation era, and they just complain about the new stuff. They're excited for the remakes. All the remakes suck. I don't think the Resident Evil series is gonna die anytime soon, but I don't see it being a top 10 game. One, because there's always some issue with it, whichever one comes out, and two, it's a horror, and not a lot of people like horror. Yeah, it might be a top 10 horror series, but overall, just top 10. I don't see it being top 15, like maybe 20.
Okay.
Not 10.
Okay.
I came into this expecting to 100% agree with David. I was going to be like, yeah, David, you're absolutely right. It is a top 10 gaming franchise of all time, because that's what it is. Now, it's very hard to, like, under what specifications. Sales-wise, it's not, right? Sales-wise, it's definitely not. It is a big one. It is a big one. But, that way Call of Duty would be number one. And maybe it is number one, but you would be missing things like maybe The Legend of Zelda, because Zelda is not a top 10 selling game of all time in terms of, sales numbers. But I would argue that that's a franchise that's top 10. So I think you got to look at, Jeremy, what you like to call the zeitgeist, right?
Okay.
And Resident Evil is by far a top 10 gaming franchise. Like I said, it doesn't sell the best. It doesn't always get the most amazing reviews, but Resident Evil 1, legendary. Probably the first mainstream horror game that hit the mainstream people, right? Resident Evil 4, legendary, a masterpiece of a game that changed action games for all time. It spawned so many of those third-person, action games that play just like it. And then you got to talk about other things. You got to talk about, like, they make movies. They make movies off Resident Evil. They made at least 5, 6, 7 of them. They made a Netflix TV show. They have comics. They have animated shows. They have an animated show on Netflix. They have board games. Resident Evil is in your face. Based on just the worldwide population, it might be in the top 5 of most recognizable gaming brands because of everything else that it does. So you look at something like Mario, you look at something like Pokemon, and Resident Evil is probably in that next level of games where people that don't even play games might recognize.
Exactly. That's the problem. Is Resident Evil's been out for so long. It's done so many different things that almost anybody can bring up Resident Evil.
Yes.
But that's
thank you. That's a great point for why it's a top 10 franchise.
Yeah, that's David's great point, because the question is Resident Evil a top 10 gaming franchise, not a top 10 media IP, right?
Yeah,
so,
and also the movies are quote unquote terrible.
They're terrible
more
movies.
Than half of the Resident Evil fans. I personally like them because I just like the Resident Evil universe. And even the newest one, where it was based on the video games, people still complain because they tried to mash 1 and 2 together. And they are at the same time, but totally different things. And if you're going to combine 2 of them, why not combine Resident Evil 2 and 3? Because those happened at the same time.
They don't.
And
they don't make movies of Lost. They don't make movies of Lost Planet. They don't make movies of franchises that aren't big.
They're making a series of The Last of Us, and that is kicking butt. Everyone loves The Last of Us. Everyone is complaining to everybody that makes Resident Evil, why can't you make Resident Evil series like this?
Everybody.
Not one person.
I don't understand it. I don't understand
Resident Evil series, movies, the series on Netflix.
I don't understand some of that argument. Have they made a Zelda movie?
No.
Have they made a Metroid movie?
Metroid is definitely not top 10 franchises of all time, but no, they haven't made a Metroid.
Have they made a Call of Duty movie?
Not yet.
So I mean, it seems it not necessarily, are the fact that it's in movies. They have an Assassin's Creed movie, right? They have a Dead or Alive movie,
right?
And those arguably aren't touching anywhere near the top 10 gaming franchises.
That's true. But in my opinion, Resident Evil is, because of everything that it provides. Not just the movies. The movies are out there, and none of those other movies have sequels. Maybe Dead or Alive, but that's made by Yule Boll. You can't even touch that. So, but it spawned so many sequels and a reboot and a Netflix TV show and an animated show. Not to mention the games are very, very well received. Very well received. They're some of the best games ever made. Resident Evil 6 notwithstanding. The mainline Resident Evil, I would not be surprised if Resident Evil 1 won Game of the Year the year it came out. Same thing with RE2. RE2 Remake was up for a lot of Game of the Year awards. RE Village was up for a lot of Game of the Year awards. They have really good games that they make. They have very memorable characters. And they spawn a ton of offshoots. In terms of just quantity, they have a ton of games. And no, that doesn't make you the top 10 gaming franchise of all time, but you're in the conversation if you have that many games. Mario has that many games. Pokemon has that many games. Something like Sonic, Mega Man back in the day when it was a top 10 franchise had hundreds of games, dozens of games, not hundreds, but it's just when you're a big franchise like that, you get those kind of things. And Resident Evil has shown that it's a top 10 franchise. It's undisputedly the number one horror franchise.
Sure. I
agree with that. But it's also contending with every other genre. And the only reason Capcom is crapping out these Resident Evil stuff besides the games is because they know that they're going to get the money for it.
Yes, but why? Why will they get Why will they get the money for it?
Because it has the name Resident Evil in it.
The name, yes, because it's a huge franchise. That's why people milk stuff, because you have a huge franchise on your hand. They don't milk low franchises. They milk the biggest and the best. Yes, it's a top 10 franchise.
Not
there's very few franchises that get milked like Resident Evil. And that's because it's so big that it's just, they're going to milk it because there's more milk to get from that cow. Always. Because of how big of a fan base it does have. And it's growing.
It's accumulated a fan base since 94?
Is that its fault? There's been a lot of games that came out then.
I
mentioned Mega Man. Mega Man was out before that and it died. Something like Castlevania could not hold on to the fan base that it had. It died. Resident Evil since, what'd you say, 93? 96? 96 have been going strong. They did not have they haven't had low points. Resident Evil 6 was its lowest point, and it was still one of the better selling Resident Evil games.
Let's get 30 seconds final arguments on is Resident Evil a top 10 gaming franchise?
You take it.
Top horror, most likely top 10, going against every other game franchise, not top 10. It's great. It's milked. It's used just like the words Apple. People buy Apple because it's Apple, and it's not that great. That's my debate.
But Apple's a top 10 tech company because of its name. Anyways, my point is this. The top couple franchises, I'm not arguing it's top 5. You have something like Mario, you have something like Pokemon, Call of Duty. But this is impossible to pinpoint. It's impossible to say if Resident Evil is bigger than, say, Street Fighter, a company that also is made by Capcom. But you can't tell me that when listing out top 10 biggest gaming franchises that you wouldn't have to debate if Resident Evil was at number 8 or 9 or 10. It would be a debate for that, and it's all personal preference at that point. Someone might not look at it as such, but with everything else going for it, the movies, the board games, the animated stuff, it's definitely top 10. It's got such high name recognition.
All right. Valiantly argued topic. Is Resident Evil a top 10 gaming franchise? I feel like this is, pretty obvious where I'm leaning. No, it's not.
Yeah, of course.
That's a ridiculous argument to me.
Okay, well.
You already said you got Mario, you've got right off rip. You could argue Sonic right off rip. You could argue Halo, Call of Duty, right off rip.
But why?
Because they're...
Why could you argue Sonic? What does Sonic do that's better than Resident Evil?
What does it do that's better? Well, for one, its mechanic is somewhat original. It didn't begin by stealing the mechanics of Dino Crisis and then stealing the mechanics of PT.
Oh, this is what this is about. Oh,
okay. That's for one. And then obviously none of those other games had something to come out like Resident Evil 6 that literally threatened the actual livelihood of the franchise.
So Sonic 06 didn't come out. Okay. All right. We see bias here. Okay.
Sonic makes bad Sonic games are part of the franchise.
Bad Sonic games are the only thing they make. And yet they're still a top 10 franchise to you?
Yes, bro. Because it's
freaking Resident
Sonic.
Evil.
That's a ridiculous argument. It's Sonic.
You have Resident Evil going up for Game of the Year awards every time one comes out, except for, like I said, Resident Evil 6. You have them remaking every game that they made previously because fans want those games so bad. We want to see RE4 with a new coat of paint. Like,
what do you think has more Game of the Year nominations? The Resident Evil franchise or the Dark Souls franchise?
Maybe Dark Souls, but
okay, cool.
That doesn't matter.
That's only 6 years of games. Anyway, let's move on.
Okay, yeah.
Let's move on.
Okay.
Topic number 4. Tears of the Kingdom, the new Zelda game. Speaking of great franchises.
Yes.
It is coming out, and Nintendo said, hey, watch us yeet these $60 prices and put in a $70 price. We talked about how much we hated Activision saying they're going to do this, PlayStation with their first party games doing that, charging $70 for a 10-hour Jack and Dexter game, right? Guys, what do we think about Nintendo charging $70 for the new Zelda game? Do you believe it's deserved?
David, if I may take this.
Go ahead.
There's no doubt that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is going to be worth the $70 price tag. The people who purchase it are going to get as many hours out of that game as they want. It's not going to be something where it's like, hey, this was a 10-hour game and now I'm done. They can put hundreds of hours into that game. They've done it with Breath of the Wild. But was it right for Nintendo to charge $70? They're a company. They can charge whatever they want. But the timeline of them doing it is very odd to me. The Wii U price tag was $50 games. And when Switch came out, they said, you know what? We're going to do our games at $60. New generation, new specs to work on, new development costs. 100%. You know what? Don't like it, but that makes sense. Now, in the middle or towards the end of the Switch's generation, with no upgrade in sight from the hardware, they're saying, hey, this game is going to be $70. Why? We're getting it on a 7020p system that runs games at 30 frames a second. Development costs were not more for this game than they were for Breath of the Wild. They shouldn't have been. They're working on the exact same hardware. So why are you upcharging us $10 for a game for games that previously were $60 on your same exact console? And they also said this isn't a full $70 price range for all their first-party games. We'll take it by a case-by-case basis. That tells me we know Zelda's going to sell. It's our biggest game. We want every penny we can from our customers. So we are going to put it at the highest price we can that we think will sell. And they see other people doing 70, they're going to do 70. Go on, David. I took all the good points.
This sucks. I agree with what you're saying. 70 is now the 60 and 50s as it used to be. But yeah, they haven't. The only thing they've updated on the Switches is some of them are smaller and some of them have new screens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good point.
If they updated the Switch like they did with the Xboxes and the PlayStations like they do, as they release new models, they upgrade them, I could see it. I could be like, you know what? They had to do some more this and that, $70, sure. But like you said, they think $70 price tag is going to still have people buy the product and not complain too much. Because, some people think, oh, $60, what's another $10? They're not even going to care. Some people are like, you know what, I can only get 1 or 2 games a year. This $10 is really going to suck.
Here's a good point.
More
Nintendo games don't go on sale. Nintendo is one of the few games where it's like Breath of the Wild is probably still $60 at a lot of places because it doesn't go on sale. So for Nintendo to raise their prices are even more heartbreaking because you can't wait it out a couple months and get the game for half off like you would a Ubisoft game, because we hate Ubisoft here. Isn't that right, Jeremy? Hey. Anyways. Yeah, so
they're they're the family console.
Yeah, well,
and they put all these like amazing games on the weakest console there is.
No 4K developing at all.
Nothing.
Yeah, so and just to razz on Nintendo here, I love Nintendo, but I razz on them a lot.
Yeah,
and for one of the reasons I razz on them is their pricing schemes. To bring up a few points, the Super Mario 3D World Collection had Mario 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy. No Galaxy 2 for some reason, but you would think 3 games that are barely remastered, a little bit of up-resing, $30, $40, $60 game. We looked at something like Metroid Dread, which was a 2D Metroidvania type game. When you got games like Hollow Knight and Dead Cells going for $10, $15, $20, Metroid Dread was a $60 game. Pokemon Sword and Shield looked ugly as sin. They came right from the 3DS games, went from 40 to 60. Nintendo is a family company in name only because they do every dirty scheme and tactic they can to get as much money out of the customer as possible.
I agree. This is a difficult one.
Yeah, well,
it's a company doing company things.
It's Nintendo doing Nintendo things, right?
Yeah, $60. I feel like they'll sell more copies, but how many more copies? If it's only 1,000 more copies at 60, and they sell 1 million copies instead of 1,001,000, they're gonna make more money with the 70. That extra 1,000 copies is not gonna matter. So, it's Nintendo being Nintendo with the $7 thing. They haven't upgraded nothing. It's like I said, it's the same software. That's the right word. Off Breath of the Wild. And if this does well, they're just gonna make it all of them 70. I know they say there's gonna be a game by game basis, but I doubt that's gonna be the case.
It will sell well. It'll sell extremely well. It'll probably be the best selling. It'll probably be the number 2 selling Switch game behind Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Yeah, so this game's been in production for 8 years, 7 years.
I'm gonna steal a little line from Jeremy, right? and switch it up. I'm not pandering with this, Jeremy, but you like to say sports gamers are the dumbest gamers.
They're the
right?
dumbest gamers, yeah.
Put Nintendo there too. Nintendo gamers.
Okay.
Put Nintendo gamers.
Oh yeah.
Well.
Oh yeah.
Came out in
I mean, half of them are kids, so you can't blame them. But the other half, you really got to do better.
That's a lot sooner than I thought it was.
As far as the release of the game.
Yeah. So, Breath of the Wild came out in March 3rd, 2017. I thought it came out in 14.
It feels like it came out in 1997.
Yeah.
To me.
So they basically been in production of this game since that game sold well. I can only imagine.
Well, it's been 6 years.
Yeah. But they haven't given us a lot off the trailers to go off of, but it does seem like it's the same landmass. So whatever production they went into creating that world the first time is much less from what we've seen so far. You know, there might be some big reveal where it's like, this game takes place only underground and there's a whole new, 12 different towns and stuff, but it doesn't seem like that. It seems like they took the same landmass, they put a few of them in the sky, and I don't know where the production costs went to make this a $70 game.
Yeah, it should be 60, if anything.
Guys, yeah, the topics of which when you guys agree is a little bit harder.
Yeah,
both made some great points. They really like the point you made that this is supposed to be the family console, and you're upcharging. If this is supposed to be the default family console, then you're upcharging families that this is also perceivably the most affordable. So these may be families that can't really afford to go about dropping a bunch of guap on games, and now you're upcharging another $10 on a game that do you really have to? You're not doing any extra development from a technical standpoint, right? It's still going on your stupid, silly Switch, right? That no one plays anymore because, well, people will play, but I don't play anymore because I got a Steam Deck, which is a real mobile console. Yeah, I see that, but then Corey, like you said, you mentioned a bunch of stuff with, hey, this looks like it's basically when they showed us, doesn't look like they really built a completely new environment or a new area for us to explore. It's not like the Pokemon games. We know all the different work they put into those. I mean, they knocked those out round the clock as far as adding new things and new innovations, right? I think for this topic, I'm going to give the nod to Corey on this one.
I thought, yeah, that was definitely.
It was that first chance to talk. Sorry.
Or no, I mean, I wouldn't even said what you said if I went first.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yep. Compliments to Corey, terrible thing. Well, we're going to end it with our last topic, number 5. This is important. This is an important question for all of us. I'm interested. Gentlemen, are we aging out of gaming? I mean, we're all quote unquote middle-aged. I mean, I have the spirit of a 7-year-old, but chronologically, I'm quote unquote middle-aged.
We all get older, but not everyone grows up.
Hey,
wise words. So my question is, you see the games coming out, right? This is especially, I think, really prevalent or relevant in regards to like Nintendo, where it feels like Nintendo stays making games for kids, right? Like Splatoon, it's not a game an adult would play. Now I know there are adults that play Splatoon.
Hey,
that's not a game an adult should play, right? That's little kids running around as ink mobsters blobbing each other. That's not a game an adult should play, but they do. So the question is, are we aging out of gaming? Do you think gaming is fit for us? Or do you think they're making it for the youths, as Joe Pesci would say, for my cousin Betty? Is it for the youths? Is it for the younger people now?
That quote was not for the younger people, let me tell you that.
It was not. It was for people even older than us.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think the industry in itself is kind of pushing us out of the way, because most games have some sort of pass you can get now, right? Battle passes, whatever they name them for their game. Like the game I play on my phone, Beatstar, it's like a media pass or something like that. Now you have to like be dedicated to that game over the course of that pass time in order to get all of the collectibles. Now that some people, don't care about, they'll just play the game when they can, but that is a huge like crutch that those games depend on, because they get the $10 for the pass or however much they spend or however much it costs, and people just play and grind to get the cosmetics and equips and all that, and not completing the battle passes before the time is up. Just you feel defeated, even though you shouldn't, because they're just pixels in a game, you know. But more and more games are coming out with these types of stuff. Overwatch is on it now. So Overwatch 1, it wasn't. Overwatch 2, they have the battle passes now, and theirs is just like I thought. They're cheap. You can't even get the currency in the battle pass to buy the next battle pass if you complete it, like Apex. You know, you can throw the $10 down and keep going. That's irrelevant right now, I guess. But there's some games, like the new Zelda game coming out. Sure, we can play that. There's no time frame to where you need to do that. But maybe the next one does. You know.
All right, Dave, you took all my really good points to start off the conversation.
He did.
So thank you for that. But I think I can pivot just a little bit. You were spot on the money with online gaming trying to take up all of your time. And you mentioned time, and I think that is the biggest enemy of older gamers is time. Because we don't have it. Either we have responsibilities, we have a job, we have kids. We don't have the time to game. And so you were bringing up the online portion with the battle pass, and that's 100% true. Like I said, I agree with you. But I want to say, you know what? Hey, Tears of the Kingdom, we'll just play that. You know, there is no – it's a huge game. It's a huge game, though. Like, even though it's single player, you can play it at your leisure. Are we looking at 40, 50 hours, 60 hours to complete it? That's hard. That's hard to do. You really have to dedicate yourself. A lot of these games – the genre of choice now, I would say, is open world. Open world games tend to be very long. They have a million things to do. I personally can't get into open worlds as much. You know, some of them I can. Harry Potter just came out. I'm going to dedicate some time to that. But in general, I can't get into them. I don't have time to figure out all the systems, learn them, dedicate myself to them, get good at them, along with a story. Horizon Forbidden West is a good example. Jeremy, did you finish that game?
I did not.
It's so long. There's so much stuff to do. There's so many points on the map. There's so many different things. And so many games are taking that like, hey, we're going to spend 7 years to put out this 100-hour game. I don't think people want that. I think people want something like Dead Space. David, you said you bought it. I guarantee that when you start playing it, you will beat that game because it's a 10 to 12-hour game. It's a linear experience that you can sit down and enjoy and feel like, hey, I feel proud because I beat this game, but those are few and far between, and they're hard to come by.
Right.
And that's what's leading older gamers out of the genre or out of video gaming.
Yeah, and it's just saying open world and stuff like that. It's just like overbearing, and like for me, collecting stuff and doing this city and that city, it's too much for me. Even though I sat here and put 2,000 hours in the Apex, that's just easy. It's mind numbing. You do the same thing over and over again. But open world, you gotta find things and upgrade your items and defeat this boss. And like you said, those take 40 to 60 hours. The average person our age, you know, some of us have to work 2 jobs while having a kid and a spouse, and maybe they have to take care of someone in their family. You know, 40, 60 hours is gonna take freaking 6 to 7 months.
Yeah.
So the games nowadays are just putting so much into them, and they expect you to do so much with it. We are kind of being not catered to at the least.
And companies are trying to do a better job of creating single player games, but I would think that single player games are at an all-time low in terms of percentage versus online gaming. Now, online gaming is not that old in general, you know, around the Xbox 360 time for consoles. But I would say the splits are probably closer than they've ever been, or maybe in favor of online gaming. So if you're not willing to get on online gaming and really dedicate yourself to one game to get good, because if you're not putting the time in, you're not going to get good and you're not going to have a fun time, that the choices for single player are just kind of not there as much.
Yeah, a lot of the single player stuff we're getting right now is remakes and remasters.
Yeah. They're living off nostalgia a little bit. Like, these people that do like these games, we know which ones they like, and we're going to make those because we're not going to try to create a new single player game because who knows? A lot of people don't care about single player anymore, and people aren't going to buy that. But if we remake this game, we already know we have a built-in audience.
Right, you're guaranteed, couple 10,000 of sales for that game.
Right, RE4
Easy
remake.
money.
We're a top 10 franchise. People will buy this game.
Right.
Nice callback.
Right. Very nice callback. Guys, couldn't agree with you more. Very nice arguments. For me, David wins that one. Not only because Corey at the end, just no reason for the dig, but David, you brought up the idea of like the time, and especially like how they're manufacturing or bringing in, not maybe if they're not specifically, let's say, battle passes, but something of that variation, either for online games or even single player to some extent, that is requiring someone to dedicate an extreme amount of time that an adult usually that works maybe a full-time job, may possibly have a family or wants to work on a business, right, to create generational wealth for the family and not play crappy games. They can't donate that time to it.
Right.
So yeah, I really like that point. Corey, obviously you added on some great points and context there as well. But yeah, 100% agree. Yeah, it feels like they're not aging us out maybe with the content, so to speak, or subject matter, I should say. But in regards of what the time demand from a gamer has to be, it's just something that can't fit anymore. Corey, you did mention it. It's one thing I've mentioned before. I found that my perfect game length is something between 10 to 14 hours, right? Like that's what I can do. I'm more for sure to complete a game like that. Compared to a game that requires 30, 40, 50, 60 hours. Like I know for myself, I will never have an experience with a game that I had with Skyrim. That was the perfect time that I had free time to throw hundreds of hours and get lost in the world. I won't be in a situation like that ever again.
Right.
The only way that'll happen is unless this podcast takes off to the moon.
Oh, please. we do have a Patreon.
We do, which I was going to say for the end, but it's good you bring it up. We do have it. We'll talk more about it later, people.
Yes.
But yes. So that ends Gamerbate. Guys, you get a splendid job. Great arguments on everything across the board.
David, you were a great opponent, David. It was fun.
You were too. Thank you. I just want to add real quick, like The Last of Us Part 2, I loved that game.
Yeah.
50 hours was
too long,
and I was like, I love the story, but like, where's the end?
Yeah, I mean, look, with Part 2, right? I relented. I didn't play it as part of the review because of the stealth mechanics. But you
didn't watch it, right?
I did watch the story, but you'd say it's like what, a 25 maybe on average play, right? As far as
longer.
Hours, maybe longer.
It took me 50 hours. I don't
50
remember
hours
around in games like that.
I think
was that regular, normal, like normal?
I think it took
difficulty
me
or
35 or 40 hours.
Okay. Well, see,
I might have died a lot.
Yeah, that's my point. We're talking about a game like that's 30, 35, 40 hours. The mechanics of which I can't play a game for 30, 35 hours being pissed the whole time, because that's what would happen with The Last of Us Part 2. I would be angry the whole time.
But didn't you do that with a game? You just like angrily beat it, just beat it?
Yes, it's not Inside, but the one before it. Which was that one the company made?
Limbo?
Limbo, yes.
Really?
I hate beat Limbo.
Wow.
Yeah. I was so angry. I was so angry. I had to finish it so that way I had credentials to talk crap about it. Yeah, exactly. Gotcha. You got to do that. Round total. Rounds 3 to Corey, 2 to David. Point totals.
And this is what matters. Rounds don't matter. Points.
18 to Corey, 15 to David.
Awesome. Does winning a round give you a point?
Have we worked out all the kinks of this game yet?
Most of the
smooth.
time,
it went good.
Most of the time, winning a round coincides with the point total.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, but that may not always be the case. And you know what? I'm down for it. You tell me I have a debate. You tell me I lost rounds 1-4, but I got the most points. I must have crushed that round. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, it's Gamerbate, man. Very fun. Looking forward to doing this. Doing this what?
I would say I'm number one. I'm number one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but looking forward to doing this basically twice a month, every other week.
Yeah.
Right. So that brings us to the end of this level. And at the end of the levels, we have final thoughts, where each of us give a final thought or opinion we want to make about something that's either related or unrelated to the podcast episode. So I will ask, who would like to give their final thought first?
I'll go.
All right.
If I seemed out of it, or sound weird, or look tired because I'm sick, I pushing through this. My body aches, and I'm ready for bed. That's my final thought.
I feel you.
So I will make my final thought extremely long to postpone that as long as possible.
Yeah.
No, Jeremy's going to bring this up in a couple minutes, but yeah, we started a Patreon, which if you don't know what a Patreon is, I will use my final thoughts, just expand on that a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's a way to directly support us as podcasters, right? Like if you like our content, you can throw down $2 a month, which, would be amazing. Not necessary at all. We will keep giving you all the content we can as long as we can. But if you decide to do it, it would be something that would be, I think, super special to us. It would make us feel professional. Like, oh my goodness, we got $2 for doing this. Yeah, for hosting and stuff. But yeah, just you guys listening and hopefully coming back after such a long break is awesome. And this was much better than my final thoughts last week.
It was. A matter of fact, I'll maybe save that. I'll put out the clip of that because that was also lost. That maybe should have been the thing. That maybe was the reason why it was lost. The universe could have been saying, "Hey, this is terrible. What this guy's done. Let's just shun it away." I will unearth it. I will bring it to the people. But yes.
Okay, I forget what it was.
I don't want to say it. Keep your pet sprayed and neutered.
Oh, yeah.
R.I.P. Bob Barker.
Yeah, that sounds weird.
Yeah, my final thought is a two-part. Part one. Kudos to you, David, for pushing through. You're super excellent this episode. Being able to debate and come up with all those arguments and having to deal with dialoguing with Corey for so long. I mean, it's just kudos to you.
You'll get it in 2 weeks, Jeremy. Don't worry.
I know. Yep. I'm doing the mental preparation now. The other thing I want to say is yes. We have a Patreon. As Corey mentioned, it's a way to help support the podcast. It would mean a lot. Obviously, other ways to support the podcast are appreciated. Sharing the video and podcast episodes, following us on the socials, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. We always have, or are trying to be more consistent with having video podcast versions of the audio podcast. So either way you prefer, help us out there. But yeah, the Patreon, we believe we have 3 tiers going right now, a $2, a $5, and maybe like a $7 one. Each of them offer different perks. So like, access to our Patreon feed, access to bonus levels. Eventually we'd like to do something where we can actually stream recordings. You guys can actually watch us, see how we put this whole little thing together. There's a bunch of cool things. It'll be located in the show notes as well as in the, I guess, social media posts we post with the episodes. So yes, we'd be very appreciative if you check that out. If you are not able to do it, again, like we said, no problem. A like, a share,
anything. And a share is free.
Exactly. We'd appreciate it all. So that's my final thought. That is it for level 51 of the Thoughts and Players podcast. If you liked what you heard, including that last bit, Please follow us on the socials. Like I said, we are on Facebook at facebook.com/thoughts and players. Like it's all one word. We are on Instagram at thoughts.players, Twitter, thoughts players too. We are on TikTok, thoughts players. We are on the YouTube. That's a weird letter thing that YouTube does. So it's not just, but if you look at thoughts players, I believe on YouTube, you can find us there. It's very easy. They gave us something else that was weird. We made sure we got it right. And then of course, again, you can find us on Patreon. That's it for me. That's it for the compadres, I believe. Is there anything else?
Nope. Goodbye.
Goodbye. We'll catch you on the next level.
Peace.